To my shame, I've never been to the Isle of Wight and
I'm leaving
watched.
now.
I know, I'm sorry, I feel terrible, but having watched, what a beautiful, beautiful place.
It's glorious. I mean, I've spent part of my life down there. We've had a place down there for more than 20 years now. I was High Sheriff for a year, which was great fun.
High Sheriff?
Yeah, I know.
Do you get a badge and everything?
Oh, you get.
What does it mean being a High Sheriff?
Well, you're the Sovereign's representative for the judiciary.
Ooh.
Yeah, and it's only a year long term.
Right. That's very grown up, Alan.
Awfully grown up. You wear knee breeches and a jabot and a sword and all that. But it was lovely. It's encouraging as much as anything. You know, local activity volunteers. And when you are High Sheriff, you realise how much this country is held together by volunteers.
Oh.
And on the Isle of Wight, exactly the same as anywhere else.
Oh, it's absolutely lovely. You were very lucky with the weather, weren't you?
It was glorious summer in which
gorgeous.
to film. But it's like a microcosm of Britain. I mean, glorious beaches, wonderful downland. We tell stories of fishermen and restaurant owners and beekeepers and a tiny weeny airport on the island. It's got its own character, and I think it's an undiscovered, in many instances, jewel of Britain, and it's so accessible.
It is.
Right in the middle at the bottom, just off the Hampshire coastline. You know.
Right in the middle at the bottom.
Well, that's geography, you see.
That's geography. But it is gorgeous, and you can tell you love it so much.
I love it, and I love the people, and we've been made very welcome.
No, it's gorgeous. So, if I was going, what are the things to do? The main things would you see if if you're bouncing in?
Well, I'd certainly go to Osborne, which is in East Cowes, which is Queen Victoria's old house. It was handed over to the nation by Edward VII in 1901. Glorious garden there. We talked to the twins. There's these twins who run the garden there at Osborne, and it's like being on the Riviera. You said it was like. The light on the Isle of Wight is great, and it is sunny a lot of the time. Though I do have friends who said, we went to the island once when I was a schoolboy. It rained. I've never been back. You know, but you can see here what it does look like.
But it's kind of that way where it can be rainy in the morning and then sunny in the afternoon, which is absolutely beautiful.
Frank Sinatra, wasn't it? If you don't like the weather in London, wait around for half an hour.
Exactly. And it'll change and it'll be fine. Famous for tomatoes, which are a hot topic right now.
They are indeed, and we ask in our supermarket for the local tomatoes, Isle of Wight tomatoes, and that's the big thing about this whole vegetable scenario at the moment is we all need, particularly post-Brexit, we need to get used to supporting our growers more, to asking for seasonal produce and local produce. And, I know Therese Coffey was knocked for saying eat turnips, but there's a modicum, more than a modicum of truth in that. Look to your roots during the winter. Potatoes, parsnips, weeds, turnips. Get used to them all, and you'll find your diet changes, and it's much more exciting than having strawberries in the middle of December, which have had to be, or avocados, flown over from felled rainforest across the oceans. Why would you do that?
No, exactly. So do that. And you know what? It's interesting because last year we grew tumbling toms.
Yes.
Oh, tumbling toms.
Yeah.
And you can grow them, you don't necessarily have to have a garden. You could do it in a little hanging basket.
Pot. You can do the tumbling ones in a hanging basket. You can have grow bags either side of your doorstep.
Right.
I'm just about to plant my onion sets. Bit early for potatoes yet. Wait till the end of the month, particularly with this cold snap threatened. But look at growing some of these. The sense of achievement is wonderful. And then we're all doing our bit and being responsible and supporting British growers and the British climate too. Our seasonality is an advantage. We love waiting for spring. It's gorgeous. No,
exactly. You're right. We have to kind of get into a different mindset. Sticking with the royals now, and King Charles is on the front of the Mail this morning, photographed with European Commissioner President Ursula von der Leyen, as they ask whether it's a meeting that he'll come to regret. Well, Royal Editor Russell Myers joins me now. Interesting, isn't it, that these questions are being asked of King Charles? Do you think he's been put in a difficult position?
Well, good morning, Lorraine. Well, it's a big question, of course, because King Charles normally meets statesmen and women, he meets presidents and world leaders, and yet here he is meeting the president of the EU Commission, and Ursula von der Leyen is not a world leader. But, of course, the argument is that she does have considerable power. Now, it comes, of course, on the backdrop of this historic Brexit deal that was sort of underwritten yesterday by Rishi Sunak and Miss Ursula von der Leyen. And then she popped over to Windsor Castle for some tea. Now, we don't know what they spoke about. I imagine it was climate change, the environment. They're both very passionate about that. But there was a bit of toing and froing about who had asked for the meeting. Was it number 10? Was it the EU Commission, or was it the King himself? I suppose we'll never know because everyone's being a bit tight-lipped about it.
Very, very interesting. Very interesting. Now, look, Camilla will have a title, obviously has a title now, but after the coronation, it would seem no longer consort. She's just going to be referred to as the Queen.
Well, again, I mean, from one controversy to another, it seems, because, I mean, you remember way back when, before they were even married, we were talking about titles for Camilla, and it was assumed that she would be Princess Consort. Indeed, that's what the palace said at the time. Now, to be fair to Camilla, she has worked incredibly hard to sort of work not only on her own PR, but really sort of assign herself to causes that are very dear to her heart. We've seen her working incredibly hard with literacy, especially children's literacy, the domestic violence arena. She's a celebrated campaigner. Then we had the Queen, the late Queen, of course, in her Jubilee message, said that Camilla would be known as Queen Consort. Now it seems that slowly but surely the palace are kind of dropping out the consort. We had it last week when they were introducing one of her projects. It would just be known as the Queen's Reading Room. And I think that it is a little bit more palatable now. We've definitely moved on from the days that Camilla was public enemy number one. And you know, it is right and proper that she is the Queen. So I think that title will stick, to be honest.
Yeah, I think they've been calling her the Queen for quite some time. Within the palace, as you say, they have been referring her to that. I still think it might not go down all that well with some sections of the of the public who are still very pro Princess Diana, even though she has been dead for such a long time. She always said she would never be Queen, mind you, didn't she, Diana? Now, talking about the coronation, love, still speculation about, is Harry going to be there? Is he not? Does he want an apology? And if he wants an apology, what does he actually want them to say sorry for? Because there's quite a lot of gripes in that book. That could be quite a long session of apologies if it goes ahead.
Yeah, well, I think that's quite an understatement, to be honest, because, I mean, this has been going on longer than the Brexit saga, whether Harry will he or won't he attend the coronation. Indeed, it has been widely reported. I mean, he alluded to it to himself in his interviews for the promotional tour of his memoir Spare, that he was sort of seeking reconciliation, but that had to come with some caveats from his family. He believes that certainly his father, Charles, and brother William had sort of behaved dishonourably towards him. He was sort of forced out of the royal family. However, I think he will be waiting an awful long time if that's his caveat for coming to the coronation, because there's an awful lot of business to get through the door before the coronation. We've only got less than 10 weeks. So I think Harry will come. I don't think he'll pass up the opportunity, but he might be waiting a little bit longer for said apology.
Exactly. He should be there. He absolutely should be there. Him and his whole family should definitely be there. And you would like to think that they would be able to build bridges. I'm not sure, though. Right now, though, well, he is our best-loved vet, isn't he? Super vet Noel Fitzpatrick sharing some of his favourite stories from his remarkable career in his latest memoir, Beyond Super Vet. It's out in paperback from tomorrow. Noel, it's so good to see you.
Thank you so much, Lorraine. It's always a pleasure.
And what really struck me about this as well, apart from all the stories about animals and all of that and their love for them, mums.
Yes.
Mothers.
Well, I was very keen to get the book out for Mammy's Day because there's 2 chapters in there about my favourite mammies. My own dear mammy who passed away, and of course the Queen Mother, who there's a whole chapter dedicated to, because I accidentally kicked over her handbag.
You did, as you do. As you do
when you just meet her and sit down.
So there you are. You meet the Queen, which is a big deal anyway, and you're a bag of nerves.
Yeah.
And I don't know how.
Well, I had a cast on my leg, and I had forgotten that I was having it reoperated. I'd forgotten about it. I was thought to be 250 people there. There were only 8 people there.
Oh, it was very intimate lunch.
I was sitting to her right-hand side, sat down. The man with my chair missed because I had a big cast on, so I missed whilst sitting down.
Oh no, you did that awful thing.
Forward.
Oh, crikey.
Kicked the Queen's handbag under the table, and we met approximately 1 foot over the luncheon table. Oh, I'm terribly sorry, Your Majesty. But she was adorable.
She was OK with it, that's
adorable.
good.
And we had a good old chat about how I had to have a John Travolta leg trousers made for my cast.
Right.
And she was a great mum, you know, truly. I mean, the book's very much about mothering. It's about all the different lessons we can learn from mothers. And her chapter's called Commitment, because she was remarkable. I mean, it was truly like talking to your mum. And my mum loved her, and she wasn't the least bit impressed that I had lunch with the Queen. What she was impressed by was that I might get the opportunity to ask her for a loan of one of her hats.
Right.
Yes, because, of course, I'm like, Mammy, I don't think this...
Hat envy.
Yeah,
no, I
hat
get
envy.
that. I get that completely. I mean, you talk about animals and particularly what they can teach us.
Yeah.
Because anybody who's got a beloved pet
Yes.
knows that. You know,
Yes.
they know that it's that sort of, we've talked about it before, that sort of amazing unconditional love that
Well,
you
it's
don't
like-
really get from humans.
It's life-changing.
is.
Only last week I had a dog come in with a broken back after a road traffic accident. And unfortunately, the young lady who was the guardian of this dog was also badly injured. First thing she asks for when she wakes up, her dog.
Yes.
That's real life.
Yeah.
I see people having arguments in my reception area because they're going through a divorce. They come into my consulting room, nice as pie to each other, because their dog is there.
Right.
Because the great bond of unconditional love that animals can teach us.
Interesting. It's so interesting.
It's incredible.
I know it absolutely is. And you know, they are so important to us. And I just wondered how you're doing, because obviously Kira, who you loved so much, of course, you must miss it every single day.
Every single day.
Every single day you
And
must look at that face.
And I think of all the lessons that she taught me, and the wonderful, marvellous thing about the love of an animal is how much they can give you by return. And she taught me everything from how to deal with difficulties to forgiveness. I mean, I'll give you an example. Imagine you come home, you go through the front door of your house and your new puppy has chewed your slippers. Not happy about that, but you've forgiven your puppy in 15 seconds.
absolutely.
Whereas if your neighbour is parked on your drive, you don't forgive him for 10 years. That's
so true.
That's the nature of forgiveness through unconditional love.
That is so.
And
that
that's
is
what
so
this book is
true.
about. All the things that your mother would teach you if they could through the eyes of an animal.
Exactly. That's such a brilliant analogy. I love that. First, though, oh dear, there's more of Matt Hancock's leaked WhatsApp messages in the Telegraph this morning. Claims that he wanted to keep schools closed during parts of the pandemic. Here to make sense of all of this, Daily Mirror editor Alison Phillips and LBC Radio Sangeeta Maiskar. It's so good to see both of you. Now, where do I begin? Where do I begin? I don't quite know where. Why, first of all, why would you give all the WhatsApps to somebody like this particular journalist who's got previous?
I can only imagine if you are an utter fool. I mean,
Aye.
utter fool to give 100,000 WhatsApp messages to a journalist, and not just a journalist who has had a real anti-lockdown agenda for quite some time. So he, however, would argue the reason he gave the WhatsApp messages to Isabel Oakeshott, the journalist behind the story in the Telegraph, is that because she helped him write his book, which came out just before Christmas, where he told his story. I mean, his side of everything that happened during the pandemic. So that's why, I mean, whether it was just monumentally foolish, it would appear it may well have been.
But this story raises a whole host of questions about the functioning of government and whether or not it was sensible during the biggest crisis we've faced since World War II. What it also does is raise very serious questions about that man's judgment.
Yes.
Matt Hancock's judgment, not just on a professional basis, which was already under scrutiny and will be under scrutiny quite rightly in the public inquiry, but on a personal level.
Yeah.
On a personal level, to hand over detailed WhatsApp messages. He was not only giving away the trust that he had developed with Isabel Oakeshott, but also what he did was share messages from other people.
I know, people like Chris
with a
Whitty
third
and-
party.
That's not fair. It's
But
just
I
not
almost
fair.
wonder if
Completely
it's not
unfair.
actually... Well, I think there is foolishness, but I actually think it's arrogance. It's that sense that, oh, this won't happen to me. I can do what I like and I'll be fine.
So never even thinking about the consequences
No,
of doing that.
absolutely
It also was quite shocking to see just how chaotic it all was, don't you think? It was chaos was happening there.
I have a little bit more sympathy on that front insofar as it genuinely was an unprecedented
yes.
situation. Sorry to use
Yes.
that phrase again. But it was unprecedented. They were trying to work out what was happening. To some degree, there are some exchanges in which he comes out reasonably well. But the bottom line is giving over thousands of messages. We are journalists. If somebody gave me thousands of their personal messages, actually just on a level of my own integrity, I might say to them, are you sure you want to do this?
But I also take the point that, you know, it was a very difficult time and any of us would have struggled in that situation. But the idea that during that incredibly difficult time, we had government policy being made across WhatsApp is deeply worrying.
Yeah.
So the whole point of the way government operates is that you have meetings, there are minutes taken, there can be public scrutiny of that at a later date. That's the point of the public inquiry, which is just kicking off. But the public inquiry will probably never, ever have seen these messages. And that's why this kind of chummy sort of, you know, and things like getting a test, a COVID test, couriered around to Jacob Rees-Mogg's house for one of his children to have a test. Just, oh, I'll sort that out for you. It's this chumminess that just talks this idea that there's one set of rules for them and one set of rules for the rest of us.
Because there were one set of rules for them and another set of rules for us. And the person that showed that most was, I'm afraid, Matt Hancock. And quite honestly, I would be very interested, Lorraine, to find out what Matt Hancock's ex-wife might think of the fact that Isabel Oakeshott, a woman, has abused the trust of Matt Hancock. I wonder whether he now knows how that might feel.
Interesting. He has made a statement this morning. He has said that. He says, I'm hugely disappointed and sad at the massive betrayal and breach of trust by Isabel Oakeshott. I'm also sorry for the impact on the very many people, political colleagues, civil servants and friends who worked hard with me to get through this pandemic and save lives. This isn't going away anytime soon. There's going to be an awful lot of this. It raises all sorts of questions as to whether she should have given that to the Daily Telegraph.
I'm sure he probably is disappointed and sad, but he's not as disappointed and sad as the thousands of people who lost family members in care homes during that period.
Absolutely.
And that's why we need to scrutinise the decisions that were made at that time. So he's disputing some of the stuff that came out in those messages yesterday, but it certainly appears that far from throwing a protective shield around the care homes, which is what they said they did at the time, that did not happen. Now, there may be reasons why that happened, and that's what the public needs to know. But nevertheless, it is appalling the way those families were treated.
There is some weight, though, isn't there, in the argument that what we have now got is trial by media. What we really needed was a proper investigation, scrutiny via the public inquiry.
And they take too long, these inquiries. You know, the rest of the world, the rest of Europe, it's happening far quicker than us.
Sweden have done this.
And actually, the question here is, why is it that we've already spent millions and millions of pounds on this public inquiry, and yet they've not heard a single piece of evidence? And I think the next pressing question is it right, actually, for Matt Hancock at this point to come out and address some of the very acute questions that are now being asked? For example, you said that you were going to throw a protective ring around care homes. That clearly didn't happen. You went against Chris Whitty's advice and you didn't test people coming out of hospitals into care homes. Why not? And I tell you what, the reason I feel this very strongly is because I remember when that happened, I was standing outside a care home, first sets of patients being discharged, and doctors, I was ringing doctors and doing my research, and they were saying, these elderly people cannot be protected if people are coming out of a hospital now with an infection. A care home is not a place that is set up for infection control. Why? Because they are warm, they have got carpets, there are carers going from one person to another. They are sharing spaces. We knew this at that time, and actually I think pressure is going to grow on Matt Hancock to explain what happened now.
Do you think the pressure grows in the sense that his profile is very much enhanced by this whole campaign that he had to rehabilitate himself, which, you know, we're going to see him in SAS celebrities, you know, Who Dares Wins. We saw him, of course, infamously in The Jungle. Does that, I mean, has that backfired spectacularly on him, do you think?
Yes.
Yes, completely.
Because he came out of that thinking, yay, this is it.
No doubt it's backfired.
Because there was a TikTok campaign of a load of, like, 13 and 14-year-olds who voted for him for that to win The Jungle. That's why. I mean, anybody who sort of thought credibly about why on earth he should have been in there, it was absolutely repellent and repugnant that he went on that programme when the public inquiry was still... If the public inquiry had been heard and he'd been deemed to have done a fantastic job and it was great, fine, you know, rehabilitate your career however you wish. But the idea that it was done in the interim, I think, is deeply wrong.
And also, can we just take it back to the fact that he's a sitting MP? That actually the taxpayers paying his salary, instead he chose to effectively abandon government, go into the jungle on ITV. He was very successful, I think in part because people saw this single-minded focus and quite liked it. It's that single-minded focus that I think can also tip into arrogance that's probably landed him in this mess.
No, absolutely. Interesting that Isabel Oakeshott has said this morning, this is just in, she says, I make no apology whatsoever for acting in the overwhelming public interest. Wow.
But it is in the public interest. If this hadn't come out of the public inquiry, we would never have known.
True, but I do also think we have to think about what she believes the public interest is. So Isabel Oakeshott is somebody who has long campaigned against lockdown, something we know that saved lives. Isabel Oakeshott is also a journalist who takes quite a lot of her sourcing from, I would say, fringe scientists in the medical sphere.
That's been very kind.
Thank you. I'm just trying to be polite. It's quite early in the morning. You could listen to my show for a different version of all of this.
We certainly will.
And so she listens to French scientists. She's also been, I would say, somebody who strays away from objective journalism, very much into campaigning against lockdown, which, as you said earlier, was in direct opposition to what Matt Hancock was arguing for, which was lockdown.
No, we're talking... No, it's fine. I was going to give you the big build-up there.
Do it.
But I'm not going to bother now. I'm just going to say Michael Ball's here.
Yeah.
And we're going to be talking about The Empire.
Yeah.
Which is...
Which is out on paperback.
Excuse me, come on. Sunday Times bestseller. That's terribly grown up.
It is, isn't it? It was really, really cool.
A brilliant read. I romped through it, and I wanted to know what was going to happen. Is there going to be more?
Yeah, I'm sort of writing at the moment. I've done about 30,000 words. As I was saying to you before, it's knowing where you're going. It's knowing what your big finale is like in a show, and it'll change.
Now that's interesting because you said when you were writing this, it was like writing a show. It was like being in a show and going on that particular route.
Absolutely. You need to know who your characters are, and like happens in rehearsal, things can suddenly be thrown up and you think, oh, this can change.
And you can go that way.
These can develop. But for me, as long as I know the big moments that we're heading for, and take the audience on a journey.
You really are. And the thing is, this is a love letter, really, to the theatre, which you adore with every fibre of your being.
I really, really do.
You do.
And it's you know, the people who work in the theatre are my tribe. And it doesn't change. You know, the book is set in 1922. Which was a pivotal changing moment in theatre. It's when the influence from America was coming over with the musicals. It's post-First World War. People needed entertainment.
Absolutely.
The change in the role for women, you know, the suffragette movement, it's populated with a lot of very powerful women, of which there are many in the theatre.
Oh, very much so.
And
pioneers.
And it's set in a building that I just love. You know, I walk into a theatre. Remember the first time going into a theatre as a punter and looking at this beauty and this magic around me, the auditorium, the foyer.
So special, yeah.
And then you get backstage and you see how utterly different it is.
It's really crummy and kind of falling apart and all that. Everything. So the glamour.
But that's the exciting part of it, you know, and those characters that make up the family that is a company.
It's such a great idea, it really is.
Thank you.
And Billy, who suffers crippling stage fright, this is you. You can write all the things that you went through yourself. You know what it's like.
I think we can only write about what we know, what we've experienced, if we want to write with authority.
Yeah.
And, so I wanted to have this character, Billy, who had been through what I went through when I was doing Les Mis, through panic attacks, through a breakdown as such, losing your nerve.
Yeah.
And finding the techniques to get past that, to be able to get back onto a stage.
And push through. It's amazing. You did it.
And what's interesting, when it happened to me, no one was talking about this stuff.
Yeah.
You know, this is 1986, I think it is. Now people are talking, and now when I talk about mental health issues, you see so many people go, I went through the same thing and we couldn't talk about it. So it's about talking about it and about getting...
And that character is so good.
He's great. I love Bill.
There's going to be more Bill.
Well, as I said, yes, yeah.
Obviously, you're looking at this and it's so vivid and you get the images in your head and all of that. It's got, at some point, it's got to be on the telly or in the big screen.
Well, we're hoping. I mean, we're having a chat at the moment. That's all I can say about that.
Chats are ongoing.
Chats are ongoing.
I'm glad to hear it.
My people will call their people.
Indeed. You obviously love the theatre. You're going to be back in Aspects of Love. It's a sort of reimagining of Aspects of Love, kind of where it's kind of completing the circle in a way.
That's what's very emotional for me. I just finished doing Hairspray, and what is it, a year and a half ago now, just after the lockdowns. And I'm sitting and I'm thinking, well, what would I'd like to do next? Michael Ball in what was going to work? And I was away with Kath, and I put the telly on, and Moonraker was on.
Yes, okay.
And Roger Moore was Bond. Now, Roger and I met. We were great friends up to the end, but we met rehearsing Aspects of Love. Right. And he was going to be in it, and he pulled out of the production. I was thinking about Rog, and I'm thinking, I had a big birthday last year, and I went, God, I'm nearly the age that Roger was when he did Aspects, and it was literally like a light bulb went on. So I phoned Andrew Lloyd Webber, and took him to lunch and put this idea, and he loved it.
Yeah.
It's among his greatest scores. It's a very different very different kind of a show for him.
Right.
It's a chamber piece. I wanted to get the team that I originally did Sweeney Todd with to head on. Jonathan Kent directing, Nick Skilbeck doing the music and so on. And they've all gone yes. So it's one thing, you know, Lorraine, you have an idea and then suddenly you're rehearsing in 3 weeks' time.
Gosh. Listen, I have to ask you something very, very, very important.
OK.
There's a 99-year-old lady, she's called Dorothy Walsh, and Dorothy is, I mean, I say super fan. I am talking huge super fan. She's at the Rose Court Care Home in Radcliffe in Manchester. Can you just say hello to Dorothy?
Of course I can. Dorothy, why aren't you here, my lovely? Well, come and see us in Aspect. And I'm sending you the biggest hug. I'll come and see you on your 100th birthday. It's a date.
Oh,
we're on.
Michael, that is so cool. She will be waiting
to you. Oh, look at her. Oh, God bless her. Nice.
Imagine being 99. She looks blinking great for 99, I'll tell you that, she does. But look, meanwhile, Dorothy can enjoy the Empire.
She can.
She's going to hopefully be seeing it on a screen near her to celebrate her 100th birthday.
One can hope.
So much going on in your life. You need to come back. Anytime.
I'm just down the road.
Just down the road.
I'll pop in tomorrow, shall I?
Thank you. Please do.